This is entitled, You Have to Wrestle for a Blessing. Okay, I think the reason I changed it is because we had an incredible weekend last week where I would think we most probably had 120 visitors out total over the weekend. Okay, and that's not where we're at today, as you can see. But I was incredibly proud of everybody on stage because what they went through is in this lesson. And I think people have got to understand what it actually takes to get a blessing. You know, I thought about Naomi and Uka, which I was, okay. You know, it's a story you need to tell again and again. You know, Naomi has gone over to Chicago for a worldly dream to get money to set up a dentistry. She gets converted. She realizes she can't go home because there are no real churches in her home country. She has to stay there, work as a student, and, you know, finance herself. And some of you guys know how that is. That's really, really hard. Then she's asked to go on a mission team to New York. So she has to change. She still can't go home legally or go there and come back. She does that. I meet her at a conference because she looks Asian, so I think she's Chinese, so I go up to her. I say, we need a leader for Hong Kong. You need to come. But even our interactions were very much, look, you've got to understand what this means. I said, if you are not interested in learning in Cantonese, don't come. I'm not interested in you. She's like, this is not, you know, Sean talked earlier about those conversations I didn't have. I do have them with some people. But there was some very, very challenging moments. And all the time, her heart is, well, why do I want to go to Hong Kong? You know, in the first verse, the Bible says, Psalm 37:4, it says, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Well, what's Naomi's dream? It's to go back to Mongolia. Her dream isn't to go to Chicago or New York or Sydney and then have to learn another language that doesn't even look like the language you speak. But she's like, well, whatever God wants. Come on now, yeah. If that's what God wants. But she held on to this dream of wanting to go to Mongolia, be with a Mongolian man, and that's her deep heart. Yeah. Yet that's not what it seemed like in all of those different challenges. You know, and we know that God doesn't lie, so scriptures do not contradict each other. So you look at that verse and you go, well, God, hold on a second. That doesn't look like my life right now. So even in David in Psalm 13, he expresses what many of us feel, which is, how long, Lord, will you forget me? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? And we've all been there. He said, how long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer. Lord my God, give light to my eyes, or I will see sleep and death, and my enemy will say, I have overcome him. And my foes will rejoice when I fall, but I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, and he has been good to me. So we sat there doing the Mongolian Bible talk last night. Naomi just looks over, and she goes, this is the dream. This is the dream. I think about then Jesse and Liz gets up. Two very difficult situations there. I remember sitting down with Liz's family. And, you know, there we thought, this is great. We're going to have this mature couple. They're religious. They're going to become Christians. And then to see her persecuted, and they did, when she said they had a tight relationship, there's a really tight relationship there. And we were like, geez, is this girl going to make it? And then for Jesse to have, you know, really, Sam came into the church. And there was Jesse. That really was how it was. There was Big Sam and there was Jesse, right? Okay, let's be honest. And yet, to see him, and we're going to get him back, absolutely, and Tessa and that whole lot. But, and if you're watching, God's coming. Not me, God. Okay? God is coming. Because nobody is an enemy. Okay? Only Satan is our enemy. And yet Jesse stays strong through it, and it was tough. And yet you see him, there's just such victories. And yet we need to be reminded that life is a series of up and downs. Okay? God does not give up on giving us the desires of our heart. It's never God's issue. It's our issue. We've got to not let those times of sorrow make us suddenly believe that God's other verses where he wants to give us the desires of our hearts aren't true. And we've really got to understand that, because you can react to a couple of ways to today. There was some great, you can go away and feel fluffy for Naomi and everybody, and that's great. But there's a spiritual battle we're talking about. Yeah. Okay, that's what we're here as leaders to talk about. My first point is between a rock and a hard place. And we're going to take up in Genesis 31 and look at a guy called Jacob. Why? Well, whether you feel it or not, and you'll leave here and maybe some of us are going to have flat times and lunches, and it's pretty cool to feel great at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock on a Sunday and 6 o'clock, and then there's Monday at 7 a.m., right? And then you sort of go, hold on a second, where's Sunday? Okay, every day should be Sunday. But here we find Jacob, who then was to be Israel, one of the fathers of faith, finding himself between a rock and a hard place, which is where I think a lot of us find ourselves so often. It says in Genesis 31:55, it says, early the next morning, Laban, that's his uncle, right, Ted, that's right? Father-in-law, thank you, Ted. Okay, all right, kissed the grandchildren and his daughters and blessed him. Then he left and returned home. Jacob also went on his way, and the angel of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, this is the camp of God. So he named that place Meribah. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir and the country of Edom. He instructed them, this is what you are to say to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I've been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, male and female servants. Now I am sending this message to my lord that I may find favor in his eyes. When the messenger returned to Jacob, they said, we went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. Jacob had offended his father-in-law. And as a result, Laban had chased him to go, what have you done stealing my daughter? So he's running back to his brother, who he stole the birthright from. So he can't go back, and he has to go forward, but where he's going, he doesn't want to go. So he's between a rock and a hard place. So is that where you find yourself today? So many of us want to become more like Jesus. We want to go, but we know that means going to the cross. Okay, it means the pain. And you don't really want to do that, but you don't want to fall away either, right? And you're like, well, hold on a second. Can I stay where I am? But in a movement of God, nothing stays still. You want to be fruitful. That's what I really want. But I don't really want to become and work as hard as that really takes. You want to be different in your character, yet you resist discipling and resent correction. And you find yourselves in these places where you go, I intellectually want to go forward, but I don't really, but I don't want to go backwards. And then what we can do is we just become numb. We go, I'm not ambitious, I don't want to do it, I'm happy with who I am. No, you're not. And you know it. That's why jealousy comes in your heart when somebody like Naomi gets dating and you're not. That's why, resentment comes in your heart when other people are fruitful and you're not. When India just walks up to them and say, hey, I want to become a Christian. Why doesn't that happen to me, God? Why doesn't that happen to me? And they're the things deep in our hearts. God has a way of putting us between a rock and a hard place in order to make us deal with the issues in our life. Hebrews 12 verse 7 says, endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, but not true sons and daughters at all. Moreover, we all have had human fathers who discipline us, and we respect them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. You know, Jacob had been trying to control his life through lying. He had manipulated Laban. He had tried to play God in his life, and he was good at it. He was. He came out rich. And God said, you know what? He tried to be deceitful and was deceitful in running away from Laban. And, you know, there was some deceit that went on with Esau, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to put you between the two people that you have been deceitful with, and now what can you do? There's nothing he could do apart from face the issue that God wanted him to. And that was, you're not spiritual. You're not spiritual. You try and do everything your way. You try and do it with your intellect, and you work it out, and that's enough. You can't beat the man in front of you, and you can't beat the man behind you. Let's deal with the issue. You know, we want, and this world promotes, blessings without sacrifice. The religious world promotes blessings without spirituality, the health, wealth, and prosperity. That's not the way of the cross. That's not the way of the cross at all. The way of the cross is having your heart ripped out, kicked about, stamped on, shoved around until God molds you into exactly who he wants you to be. And it is an unbelievably painful process. When did this start for me? Because I think we forget it. I was, when I studied the Bible, like many of you, there was a lot of anger in my heart, you know, going from, hey, the church is great, to now they challenge me, and everything like that. And I got really angry, and I went off over Christmas. So I studied through November and December, and I went off and I just got so angry, got drunk, tried to sleep with people. And the only reason I came back to church was on a midweek, and it was to have a go at the preacher. That was the only reason I came back. That's how close I nearly didn't become a Christian. And God put me between a place of anger and lostness. Because when you know the truth and you reject it, you get bitter. You've met fallaways. You've met people that, it's funny, you can study the Bible with someone and meet them 5 years later and they remember exactly what you said to them. It's mind-blowing. And I walked into that meeting and I just wanted to really get hot. I can't remember if I wanted to hit him, but I was angry. And I was just at the back, and somebody like Jesse's and usher got hold of me. What's the problem? What's the problem? The minister came up to me and he said, look, we're just about to start. I'll speak to you at the end. And God had me sit in a service, and all I remember him saying is, who do you think you're kidding? I can't remember the title, I can't remember anything. He said, who do you think you're kidding? And they got with me afterwards and they went, what do you think? I go, I know you're right, and I don't want to do it. So at last I went, now I understand I'm between a rock and a hard place. And the only thing that changed me was somebody recommended that I fasted. And I didn't know what fasting was. I was not particularly that religious. And I just went, right, that's it. I'm just going to fast. And they didn't even tell me how long. They said, you need to fast until you change. And that was the first time I ever became spiritual in my life. Oh, I'd prayed before, but you can pray and be unspiritual. It was, spirituality for me was, do what God wants you to do, not what you want to do. Fasted all Thursday. Fasted all Friday. I remember Friday afternoon I went, because I had to give up smoking, I thought I couldn't do that. And I just went, that's it, I'm going to do this. And I remember I repented about 2 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Got with the guys Saturday and then Sunday and got baptized. In other words, you can't become a Christian until you become spiritual, because it is a spiritual issue. So when we study the Bible with people, they don't become Christians because we do first principles with them. They become Christians because we help them get spiritual. So if you study all the way through with someone, you haven't taught them to pray and they're not reading their Bibles, what chance have they got? They haven't got any chance, because we haven't made them spiritual. Bringing people to church doesn't make people spiritual. God makes people spiritual. Point number 2, how bad do you want to be blessed? Genesis 32, verse 22. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone. A man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that the hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked, "What is your name?" Jacob, he asked. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So, for the rest of his life, Jacob's name changed to one who struggles with God. That's what it means to be a spiritual Israelite, is a struggler with God. And that's the bit everybody runs away from. Yeah. You know, Jacob knew he had to deal with things with God alone, so he sent his family away. And then he wrestled with an angel. Okay, we know that because in Hosea 12:3 it talks about how he wrestled with an angel and overcame. It said he wept and begged for his favor. So in Hosea 12:3 it says, "In the womb he grasped the brother's heel. As a man he struggled with God. He struggled with the angel and overcame him. He wept and begged for his favor." That's wrestling. Now we can have many wrestling analogies, and we can understand what it would be like to wrestle with an angel. I know we did a bit of Mongolian wrestling at the brother's house, and James was wrestling with, I don't know, Hank or somebody, and, you know, there was this little 2 Chinamen, and okay. And then James goes, "Arm, let's wrestle with you." And he started, and Arm just sort of went. And James was like, and I was just like. That does not compare to wrestling with an angel. But it doesn't say he wrestled and said nothing. It says he wept and he begged. That's what it takes to get a blessing. Weeping. When was the last time you wept in prayer? When was the last time you begged in prayer? That's why you have not received the blessing. When was the time you just wept over the lostness of your family? Begged God, "I want to be fruitful so bad. Not for me, but for them. For them." When was the time you wept for fallaways? I mean, connected and went, "God, they need to come back. They need to come back. And they may have insulted you, but they need to come back." You know, Jacob knew that although his adversaries were human, his brother Esau and Laban, he knew it was a spiritual battle. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." Nothing changes unless we get spiritual. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we need to understand that. You say, "Well, what do I pray about?" There's so much to pray about. I was outside Pete and Paulina's place, just praying for their kids. They don't have kids. I know, yet. There's so much to pray for. Your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. People you know, people you don't know, your next-door neighbors that won't speak to you, college mates that are going to move into your class next year. There is just so much. You know, our battles are spiritual, and they're won and lost in the spiritual war. They're not won in evangelism. They're won before you evangelize. You know, in Ephesians 6:18 It says, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and keep on praying for all the Lord's people. Pray also for me, that whenever I speak, words may be given me, so I will be fearlessly made known the mystery of the gospel. You know, Jesus understood this in the Garden of Gethsemane. He went, what I'm going to go through on the cross is not one on the cross. You don't wait until the pain arrives and goes, God, now help me. He just, I know, I intellectually know the pain. Let me go there. That's why in James, his brother, this is Jesus' actual brother. What did he learn? He said, is anyone of you in trouble? Let them pray. He doesn't say let them moan, let them grumble, let them complain, let them get bitter. And he's even saying, when you're in trouble, when, not if. It's like, is anyone? Well, let's pray. I was talking to Dario and Sam, and just because they become a Christian, that doesn't mean that their life is rosy. They have a very difficult life. Yeah. I just say, you know, I can't rescue. It's not the big Joe that's going to rescue. I said, we've got to pray and fast this week. We've got to, God give you a job that can make you have more time. We've got to fight like crazy. Sorry, I normally don't preach from my phone. All right. We cannot stop wrestling until we get a blessing. This is where most of us go wrong. We go, I wrestled this month. Yeah, and? Wrestling with God is a lifelong experience. That's what it is. It's a state of mind. Are you a wrestler? You know, when you think of a wrestlers, who do you think of? Okay, a bit of a time difference here. Hulk Hogan, okay, The Rock, okay, but I'm sure there are some other people around, okay? You know, we used to disciple this guy called Alex Morales in LA, and his son loved this sort of mariachi wrestling, okay? So he would come and he'd have his toys at Bible talk and yeah, the guy, yeah, you know, all of this, you're like, this boy was infatuated with wrestling. That's all. He brought his toys with him. You know, we got him. I didn't know who the latest guy was, but you know, I don't know, the Undertaker or something or other. You know, and he was like, oh, the Undertaker! Ah! This guy, all he thought about was wrestling. That's how we should be spiritually. Where are you going? I'm not going to pray. I'm going to wrestle. There's a big difference, isn't there, between praying and wrestling? When you pray, God, what do I pray about? Amen and good and just, and you know, wrestling, that's different. You go, I'm going in this room, I'm closing the door, I'm getting on my knees, and I'm wrestling. We're going to deal with this issue today. You know, I turn your Bible to 2 Corinthians 7:10. I got with somebody today, this week, and I was talking to him about becoming a Christian. And he said, you're right, it's true, but how do I get a heart that wants to become a Christian? Okay. And I said, well, turn to 2 Corinthians 7:10. It says, godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret. But worldly sorrow brings death. See what this godly sorrow produces in you, what earnestness, what eagerness to clear yourself, what indignation, what alarm, what longing, what concern, what readiness to see justice done. At every point you have proved yourself to be innocent in this matter. I said, do these attitudes describe you? He says, no, that's what I'm saying. How do I get them? How do I get there? So I said, so you agree that you have worldly sorrow, not godly sorrow? He said, yes, but how do I get godly sorrow? I said, well, the reason people don't repent is because they view things from their point of view, not God's point of view. Right? I said, you're living with a girl? Yeah. So what makes you not go home and go, that's terrible, I'm moving out tonight? He said, well, you know, I know it's wrong, and I said, you've got to understand how God views it. I said, God created that girl to be his daughter. If you were sleeping with my daughter, I would be furious and have resentment towards you for taking something from her that you have not paid for because you are not married. And that would disgust me. Now, I'm not being self-righteous. That's who I was before. I said, do you relate to the feeling of me being a father and how he said, absolutely. I said, the reason you don't walk out on that woman straight away and go back and apologize is because you do not see her as a daughter of God. You see her as a girl, and it's totally okay to live with her and sleep with her. And the reason you don't radically repent is you don't view things the way God views it. That's true of us all. So God looks at the lost world and he's like, will you please speak to somebody and open your mouth and tell them the good news? Please. That guy you've just walked past is completely lost and in so much pain, and you have the truth. Some people struggle to become Christians. Why? Because you don't understand it. You go, well, I want this in my life. I want a career, I want this, I want that. I said, you know why you're struggling? Is you don't have godly sorrow. God looked to you, he said, I'm going to create you unique. Every one of us is unique. I'm going to give you these colors eyes, I'm going to do that. And he's outside time. So God could have spent 1,000,000 years on you. I'm going to give you brown hair, I'm going to give you that quirky little eyebrow that goes like this. And, I'm going to, and you're going to be, where shall I put you? I'm going to put you in China. Yeah, cool country. I made China. Right, I'm going to put you in China. Okay. And then I'm going to give you this parent and that parent, and one of them's quite good and he's loving, and the other one's a little bit sharp, so that'll mean, you see your need for real love, and then, okay, so let me plan the first couple of years out. Okay, right, there's that. I'm going to give you this illness, and I'm going to give you that illness, and then you're going to be stronger later on because then you've got immune systems, and I'm going to grow you up, and you know what, I'm going to make sure you see this program, and you heard some English, and then you thought, oh, English is quite cool, and you looked to go to England, and that seemed too cold, so I put another story on, and this guy went to Australia, so I moved you to Australia, and I gave this desire in your heart to come to Australia, and I got you to Australia, and now I'm going to make you non-Chinese because I want you to be godly. So I'm going to shake out from you the concept that everything in your country is brilliant because you'll go to another country. And then I'm going to mold you. And then, let me just, hold on a second. Okay, so let's stop there. Now, I'm going to plan out your life. You're 23. Who am I going to get you to marry? Okay, there's this really cool kid in America who's got some Chinese background. Okay, you know what? I think he'd be the greatest man. He would love you so much. And I know he's going to become a Christian because I can see into the future. So I'm going to get him. Okay, and then what sort of kids am I going to give you? And that's how God thinks about us. He's like, he's completely outside time. He can focus on you for 1 billion years to build your life. And he goes, man, and then he watches you grow. And then you move to Australia, and he's like, I'm so excited about the next chapter in your life. And you go, I don't want to do it. He's like, no. I'm so excited about the next chapter in your life. You don't want to do it. And that's the battle. Yeah. But when you go, God, man, my life's been pretty awesome up to now. I've had some challenges, but I mean, let's just be honest. I'm not third world over here. And it's, man, and you've done that already? I'm just so excited about what you'll do in my future. I mean, here today, you look at Uka and Naomi, you don't go, oh, suppose that's the best it's going to get, right? Well done, enjoy today. We go, man, I can't, what's going to happen? And the Mongolian Bible talk, it's going to grow. I mean, God looks at a life and is just like, whoa! When we think like we think, everything seems impossible, hard. It's just like, God's going, no, you don't understand. I think you've really got to fight for a blessing. What does that mean? I've been in quite a few fights. Sorry. I remember the first fight I got absolutely creamed in. I can remember every one of their names. His name was Joel Gardner. He was a year below me at school, and I was really up for this fight, and I went to a boarding school. And I remember he stuck his head down and just went like this, and he completely smashed me. Because all I could hit was the top of his head, which really, really hurt. And he completely bowled me over and just beat me up. And I was older and bigger than him. And I was just like, that's ridiculous. But he had figured out already he's going to have pain and inflict pain. And he just stuck his head down and went, right, I'm plowing into this. Does that describe your life spiritually? I remember another fight I got into with a guy called Tony, who ended up becoming my best mate. And that's actually quite funny how that actually works. And I remember we were at uni, and it was a serious fight. We had a crowd, we had seconds, and was it knives? Or, I mean, it was a serious fight. And I went, we're both going to get hurt. I didn't think he's going to get hurt. I thought, we're both going to get seriously hurt here. That's what happens when you're in a fight. I don't know any fight I've ever been into that I haven't come out hurt. The only issue is am I still alive at the end of it? You know, that's what it means to fight. Spiritually, you have to fight to be fruitful. You have to fight to change your character. I remember when I was first in the ministry, I've shared this a few times, but it's like I was so arrogant. Hey, honey? Okay, all right. I was so, even Ian will remember, I was so arrogant. And I got to the point where it was like every meeting, it just oozed out of me, and everybody was discipling on me. And I just couldn't, I was like, I could not hold it in. And I remember leaving one Sunday service, and I was broken. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't go to another church service and keep being challenged on this thing that I know you hate. It's so discouraging. And I just remember walking home for 2.5 hours going, God, make me humble. Please make me humble. I can't handle this anymore. Just make me humble. I don't know how to change. I don't know how to deal with it. I just don't want it. And then it just went away. I still struggle with it, but I had to get to the point where I was begging God not to be proud. You want to change your character? You have to get to a point when you're begging. Maybe your issue is purity. Maybe your issue is laziness. But you have to get to a point you go, enough, God. I can't be who I am anymore. I think about fruit. Do you know how difficult it is to be fruitful? If you don't feel for people, it's not that you won't ever be fruitful, but they won't stay faithful. I remind you of Hank. I got so attached to Hank. I was like this guy, he wanted to be an assassin like me before he was a Christian. I know that's fantasy and world and everything, but it's like we watched these movies and we had everything around. And then I studied the Bible with him and we finished everything. And I said, okay, Chi, go home with him. He's moved into his house and just count the cost with him. Chi phones me up an hour later. He's run. He's fled. I'm like, what did you do? He left my house. He was fine to be baptized tomorrow. He's fled. And I remember that week I just got hurt, then I got angry, then I got ticked, and I was just like, this is unacceptable. I can't handle this pain. This guy could be the future of China. What's gone on? And I remember, so I dropped Luke off to a drum lesson on that Saturday, and I just went to his house, found his house, and just beating on the door. And his friend came down, and I said, is Hank there? And he said, well, he's not awake yet, so well, I'll be back. I remember just begging on the door, and then he came down and said, what went on? We were friends. And I remember when Hank shared a communion, he said, I wanted to come back, but I needed an excuse to come back. And Joe was that excuse. How many of the people we had for Women's Day, Men's Day, studied last month, studied last year, are looking for an excuse to come back? That's why I'm phoning all the followaways. Maybe they're looking, if they would only phone me, if they would only have a coffee with me, if they would only apologize for something they did and accept that there was something wrong on their part, then maybe I'll have enough humility to come back. But none of those people are not going to come back unless we get with them. Yeah. And we're all sinners, so they go, well, you did things wrong. Okay, I mean, if we sit there and go, no, well, that's ridiculous. Again, they're not the enemy. Our sin is the enemy. Satan is the enemy. But you have to beg. I think about special contribution. It takes wrestling. So I know a lot of us are like, this is big, and you know, some have given and some have not. But when we had everybody in the room for the marathon, I had to wrestle with people. I had to go, you have to raise more money. We're running tomorrow. Are you really going to run 13 miles for $200? Really? I mean, the amount of hours you had run, you could have worked in a Chinese restaurant for $7 an hour and have raised more money. Literally. And we had to go, right, we're resting, and there was attitudes, and there was this, and there was that, and in the end you come out, and everyone's like, yay! Greatest day of my life. It's not like anybody refused the medal on stage. You know what I mean? No, I've still got a bad attitude against Joe. Sorry about that. No, that's not what went on. But there was a wrestling. And you know, there's even more to come in. My dad gave me $600 on Monday, and the marathon already gone. So there's more to come in. Point number 3. No pain, no gain. Oh, we love that title until it's applied to us. Right? Genesis 32:30. So Jacob called that place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him and passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. Every time we change or try to change, it hurts us, costs us. It does. And that's the bit we don't like. Every time we convert somebody and they fall away, it takes a bit of our soul. Sometimes, if we process it right, it even expands our soul. It expands our hurt. But you know what? In the old movement, everybody can have their criticisms against Kip. And he's a sinner, so he did some things wrong. Greatest thing he ever did was he got back up again. I don't care what anybody else says. All these people that fall away and criticize him and go, what are you doing? Where's your church? Where's your worldwide movement? I mean, you want to go there? You want to be rejected by every single person in the movement you built, by one or two? And then you look in the mirror and go, through your self-doubts, and go, let's do it again. To me, that's courage. I don't care what you say. That's real courage. And to know it's going to happen exactly the same when people are going to hurt you. That's real courage. You want to ask me why I follow him? I follow anybody that the Spirit of God is with. That's the bottom line. I want to know where the Spirit of God is working, and that's where I'm going. But what is it, Kip? It's Kip because the Spirit of God is working in his life. That's where I want to be. It's not man worship. Is if God's using him, I'm with him. As simple as that. You know, I looked up how long it takes to heal the sort of injury that Jacob had. And I'm sure Kira will have some opinion on this. But so this is just from Wikipedia, which we know isn't true. But okay, and we don't know. There was no formal assessment. But it says when somebody takes the hip socket and it comes out, it takes 2 to 3 months for the hip to heal after it's dislocated. That's today. Jacob then had to walk with all his family and his animals still a whole lot more. There was massive pain in that guy. And I don't know, we all did our running. As soon as you get an injury, it's a nightmare running, right? You just, honestly, you just hurt your little toe. Any bit, the nail comes off one of your feet, and all of a sudden there's excruciating pain just from walking. It cost this guy. You know, until you embrace the pain that it takes to overcome your weakness, your character change, to be fruitful, to do whatever it is, you will never see the dreams come alive. You know, you have to date, and sometimes it has to break. You know, Kerry and I both dated before. Liz dated before. That's just reality. But what's different in the kingdom, I said this with Uka. I said, you know, because we did have a lot of fun the last couple of days. It was a lot of fun sneaking around. And I got off the phone. I was talking to Naomi saying she needs to do the welcome. I put the phone down and went, I just lied. Because I'm not, you know, because we don't lie, right? But it's a bit of a ruse and everything together. And I was like, that's a weird feeling. I just lied. It was like, it's okay, bro. But there's a pain, there's a cost. And I was telling him, he said, you know what? My first girlfriend made Kerry's wedding dress. And like, that's only in the kingdom of God. Dom and Liz date. They go as friends. There's no weirdness. It's like, that was part of the process. That was a part of the learning. You've got to understand, too many of us are like, I don't want to give my heart in dating in case it doesn't work out. That's part of the learning process. That just is. Some people marry for the first time. But it's just not, unless you embrace, unless you risk, unless you give, it never works. You know, 1 Corinthians 9:24, it says, do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to take a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. You've got to understand that it is your responsibility to be spiritual. Nobody else's. Getting with that young prophets group is really intense. There are people in that group that are more spiritual than me and Sean. That's what we came out with. Wayne's little thing, I go, man, I just want to be with Wayne. Can Wayne disciple me? I mean, honestly, that whole thing about, well, I'll fast all day and then only then will I do my follow-up. I'm like, 28 years as a Christian, when am I going to get it? You know what I mean? When am I going to get it? Well, that's painful. That means I won't like doing follow-up. Well, if you're unspiritual, yes. Do you believe that your righteousness and your prayers make a difference? Do you? Do you believe that if you change today and you become righteous in your heart and you start begging God, somebody will become a Christian this month because of your change in the next 5 minutes between here and that door? If you don't, it won't. It's as simple as that. But you've got to connect. It was great going and praying around everybody's houses except for James. And James, I want to make I need your address because I want to finish the night's prayer, if that makes sense. But I went around everybody's house and it connects you to people. I'm like, wow, I went to Lennox and Kira's house and went, look at all these flats. Yeah. We need a Bible talk here. So I went, Lennox and said, the issue is not, are we going to start a Bible talk? It's when. So I went up and said, we got to do something here. Go to Effie's house and went, man, that's tough where she lives, coming in all the time. That's a tough gig. Everybody else nearly lives in brothers and sisters' house. I'm like, I need to focus on encouraging Effie more than everybody else because she goes through so many different challenges. It helped me connect with the church. In the same way you need to connect with your disciples, you need to connect with the lost, go around their house. Go and visit them, connect with them. Even in our evangelism, they go, hey, do you want to come to church? Tell me about your life. Who are you? What are your struggles in life? Connect with people. Well, that means I've got to give my heart. I mean, evangelism might take longer if I do that. Somebody that's renowned for doing that is Brandon. He's like, who are you? Oh yeah, I want to talk about Jesus and everything. Okay, but who are you? You know, and those people that we've been studying with a long time, you've got to just say, you know what? You are going to become a Christian. I became a Christian, and I studied the Bible, and they nicknamed me the blubber, which means crying, because I cried at every study. It really hurt me. And Patrick Manley, that we found last time we went to England, he was told, give up on that guy, he's not open. Maybe because I was so arrogant. And he went, no, he's going to become a Christian. And he never gave up on me, which is why I wanted to go back and find him, which we did when we went to England last time, and thank him. I said, you're the reason for my salvation. You know, I'm praying for 10 baptisms and restorations this month. Why? Because I know I can't do that. If you set a number that you can do, you think you can do it, right? So it's got to be, and I said, and I want these people to become Christians in a way, God, that only you can get the glory. That's it. That's how it's got to be. So I'm looking for the miracle. So I'm phoning everybody up going, are you the guy? I'm not going, would you like to come back to church? Like I got with Andrew and I texted him after he came and said, I want to get with you for the sole purpose of having a spiritual conversation so that you will come back. He said, I'll get together with you. But I set the scene. You know what I mean? I did that to Nelson Santiago. Did it to a whole lot of people. So this is what I want to do. You know, you've got to wrestle for a blessing. This month, just because we call it the most spiritual month in the year, ain't going to happen just because we give it a title. Yeah, right. That ain't going to happen. Yeah. You know, you've got to wrestle for a blessing. God has put you between a rock and a hard place of needing to change your character, needing to be fruitful, because he wants you to deal with this. Right. God has put you there. He is sovereign, not me. You know, how bad do you want to be blessed? That's the real question, isn't it? How bad? And you know what? There's no pain, no gain. Learn to embrace the pain. Every great sportsman does. Every great politician does. Every great spiritual leader goes, I'm going to embrace this pain. Why? If you embrace it, you get it over and done with much quicker. But guys, I want us to have the most spiritual month. We had hardly any visitors here. I'm not bothered. I thank God. Why? Because now he's cleared out the unopened people. Right? Okay. Or show me that they didn't come because we didn't love them enough this week. One of the two. Now I know exactly what I've got to do. I've got to go find people. And because I spent all week trying to get with everybody, I go, pretty much I've got nobody to work with. So I've got to go after them. But we need to change. And we need to change the world. And we need to wrestle until we get that blessing. Amen.
To hear more from Dr. Joe Willis, check out his 2 books on Amazon, The Art of Spiritual Warfare, Practicals for Becoming a Prayer Warrior, and Money is the Answer for Everything. Click the links in the description below. Also, for more life-changing lessons, subscribe to his YouTube channel, Dr. Joe Willis.